All right. Thank you, ladies. I'm glad that we were able to get up and do that. I think it's always a very valuable part of our networking. And sometimes we skip over it because it feels like we don't have time, but I'm glad that we've done that. Two quick announcements. One is that we'll make announcements after the meeting. And the other announcement is that if you are planning to stay for lunch, please be sure that you have taken a look at the menu and you, there are little corks. There are little corks hanging around. We can find one for you. So the menus on the table, make sure to write down your order and we will get that ordered ahead of our ending time of 11:30 so that everybody can have their lunch right after the meeting. I think we are just about ready to introduce our esteemed speaker, Elizabeth Seaward. We were very lucky and happy to have her in pure pandemic times when we were doing everything online. We had Elizabeth speak with us, I think it was for Mental Health Month in May 2 years ago. And we're thrilled that she's back and getting to meet her in person. She is a clinical psychologist who is a specialist in suicidal conduct and addictions. She's also the president of ACEPS, which is the Asociación Costarricense para el Estudio y la Prevención del Suicidio. That's the Costa Rican Association for the Study and Prevention of Suicide. All right. If you can put your phones on mute, that would be fantastic. And if you need to take a phone call, I'd ask you to step out. Here we go. I think, so you prefer this will go off.
Usted me recuerda que tengo que tenerlo abajo.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Good morning. Very nice to be here to meet all of you. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with all of you today. Can everybody hear me clearly? Yes? Okay. If for some reason my voice drops a little bit, just tell me to go back up again to make sure that everybody is able to hear. Well, today we're going to speak about happiness. A subject that is often spoken about, that is in all the self-help books that we see in the librerias, that is a bit of a curious subject for all human beings. I think sometimes we think that we know what happiness is. We take it for granted that we know what it is. And actually, it's a pretty complex concept. What does happiness mean? Because happiness changes because of many different situations. It changes because life has many different situations. It changes because as I grow in life, what I define as happiness changes. It also depends on where I live. For those of us who are expats, you know, what could have been happiness where my mother country is, where I'm from, might have to be different from happinesses where I'm living now. So happiness is a concept that is in constant movement. And I think that's a very important quality that we have to remember and we have to understand. Also, human beings in general are always in movement. We are never stuck in one spot. We like to think we are. We like to think we have control of things. We like to think that we have things figured out. And maybe we have some things figured out, but we can never have everything figured out. And that can produce a lot of anxiety, especially in a world where everything is really topsy-turvy right now. I mean, before the pandemic, all of us had our issues, our wounds, the things that hurt us, that made us question, that caused anxiety. The pandemic comes and it rips off the Band-Aids that each one of us had put on those wounds to get by in life, because you have to do something with it. We can't be exposed 24/7 with what makes us sad or angry or anxious. But the pandemic came along and it basically ripped off all of those things that we had constructed in order to go out into the world and not to be so emotionally vulnerable and naked. The pandemic ends, and we all had this illusion that we would go back to normal. But what is normal? And on top of that, not being able to put our Band-Aids back on, because now they don't work the same. Now we have to build new Band-Aids. On top of that, the world has started to change and things are really different. I mean, I think all of us are questioning, why is there so much anger? Why is there so much violence? Why can't we speak to each other anymore? You know, when I go, I have to take care of my mom twice a week. And when I go to take care of her, we often put the news on and we watch the news together. And she tells me, Elizabeth, I just don't understand the world anymore. I don't understand what it means anymore. And so she said, how do young people deal with the world? You know, because it just doesn't make any sense. And I think that is a sensation that all of us have, and that's okay. I think the first thing that we have to understand is that is okay, not to understand, not to have all the answers, to feel a little bit, you know, like we all have butterflies in our stomach, but that doesn't mean that because it's okay, that I shouldn't try and do something with it. And I think that's what connects very much to these concepts that are thrown out there every single day of what it means to be happy and why we should be happy. The first thing we have to understand is there are no recipes. There are lots of self-help books. They sell really well in the librerias, but there are no recipes for what makes somebody happy. It's a process. It's an everyday thing that I have to think about. And I think many times coaching, self-help, even though they're very important, I'm not saying they're not important, but I think sometimes they can confuse us and they can make us think, well, I'm doing it wrong. Because for me, it's not easy. And I do what the book says. I get up every morning, I do my exercise, I tell myself I'm beautiful and I'm intelligent. I go and visit my friends for lunch. I come home, I pick up my new hobby, but then I go to bed and I'm like, oh, what does this mean? What did I do today? No. So we have to understand that there are no quick fixes. And it's something that I have to think about every day. And it's very much connected to my mental health, which is a subject that has finally come up and is being listened to much more after the pandemic. And we're now being bombarded with what is mental health and how should we take care of our mental health. So I invite everybody just to step back, slow down. It's not a race. It's not something that I have to have all figured out, but it's something that I think about every day. So the idea isn't for me to come here as if I have all the answers, because I don't, and I don't pretend to come and give you all the answers. What I come to do is, what my objective today is to open up the subject and that we can think about it together. Because happiness is and defining my happiness is a very lonely journey, because it involves other things that are also very lonely. For example, grieving. I cannot define my happiness if I'm not willing to think about the things that I have to grieve and the things that I have lost. And when I'm talking about things that are lost, I'm not talking about physical things. Because often the physical things, my house, my country, the smells, the sounds, no, all of those things that were familiar that I left to start on a new journey, because I wanted to, or because I was forced to, or maybe a little bit of both. All of those things that are tangible are a little bit easier to grieve, even though grieving is always kind of a yucky process, isn't it? It's always a difficult process. I'm talking about those things that are more abstract and are not quite as tangible, and that are a little bit easier to forget about and to just put away in that box that I put in the back of the cupboard because I'll get to it later. You know, why do I want to open that up and feel sad? Why do I want to open that up and say I don't understand? I'd rather just leave it hidden away in the cupboard. But if I'm going to define what makes me happy, I have to also be willing to define what makes me sad, what I've lost, what's not there anymore, why did I lose it, what it meant to lose that, in order to create something new. I cannot create if I do not let go. It's not possible. There is no creation without letting go. And so every time I take a step forward, I have to leave something behind. And that's hard sometimes. That's scary. So once again, the idea isn't that I come and tell you how to be happy, but that together we can accompany each other in trying to think about what happiness means. So very quickly, I'd really appreciate it if you could just throw out some words that you associate with happiness. When you think of happiness, what comes to mind?
Accepting suffering and radical acceptance.
Accepting suffering and radical acceptance. Okay. Moments. Smiling. Peace. Gratitude. Being healthy. Love. Contentment. Dancing. I like dancing too. Dancing's beautiful. Good company. Sunshine, yes, but not with the humidity, right? Sunshine without humidity. Lunch with the girls. Exactly. It's all of those things and many more, including fear, uncertainty, anger. All of those things go into happiness as well. Because in order to find my contentment, my peace, my health, I have to be willing to touch all of those different emotions and to think about them and to talk with them. Happiness is not just things that bring me pleasure. It's also things that don't bring me pleasure. Because if I can define what I don't like, maybe I can define what I would like to do. And once again, that's scary because that means that I have to get out of the box. I have to step out of the box. I have to try something new, and new things are frightening. Not because I think I can't do it. I probably think I can do it, but because it makes me be in a position that's different from a position that I've been in before. And that's always a little bit disconcerting, okay? When I have to be in a position that I've never been in before and I don't know what it can produce inside of me. Okay? Vamos a cambiar. All right, how does society define happiness? Why is it important to ask what society says about happiness? Because we are part of society, and society has a big influence on us. And often when we chit chat with our friends who are part of society, we say, oh, I'm having a little bit of a hard time. I don't really have the energy in the morning. I don't know what's going on. And so my friend will say, well, but what you should do is you should have one of those green shakes. You know, you go to Semaco and you buy your bullet thing and you have the green shake, and that's going to make you feel really good. So you go and you spend your 80,000 colones and you buy your bullet thing and you make your green shake and you drink and you're like, this is really gross. No, but maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I should keep drinking it and I'll start liking it. No? It's important what other people think of us and what other people tell us. That feedback is important. But what I have to understand is that person speaks from their place and from their reality and from their experience. And that's perfectly valid, as it is that I can speak from my place and my reality and what my truth is. I think we see it a lot now, the possibility that we can all be different and that's okay, that we can all have a different opinion, and that doesn't mean that one is right or one is wrong. It's just different. In difference, there is flexibility. In flexibility, there is movement. In movement, I can redefine the definition of define. Define is, I open up the dictionary, I read the definition in the dictionary, and that's what this means. And when I work with groups of people, either professionals or communities or groups like the group that's here today, I always try to remind people that there is a definition that we have all together so we can speak a common language. It's important, no? Where is the bathroom? That everybody understands what the toilet or the bathroom is, because if not, they might send me to the parking lot and I really need to go to the bathroom. So we all need to have definitions that permit us to understand each other in the language that we speak. But every word that I speak has my own definition that goes along with that. And that definition depends on my life experiences, my past and present relationships, and my family. Okay, so when I define, it's not that there is a definition. Society throws a definition, and this is one of many. No, there are probably many definitions of what happiness is. I pulled out this one because there were a few words in it that jumped out at me. And it's important that we can say, okay, when we're talking about happiness, we're talking about an enduring state of mind consisting not only of feelings of joy, contentment, and other positive emotions, but also of a sense that one's life is meaningful and valued. And one says, wow, that's a mouthful. How do I do all of that? And what does that mean? And that's the beauty of definitions, that I can question them and I can think about them from my own place and from my own experiences. So what words jump out at you here? What words sort of ring a bell? Meaningful. What else? Contentment. Feelings. Joy.
Enduring.
Enduring. That's an important word. Energizes. Okay, are there any of those words there that you could maybe question and say, what does that mean? What are they trying to say to me with that word? Positive. What does positive mean? Exactly, because there are a lot of recipes out there that say you have to have positive thoughts. Change your negative thoughts for your positive thoughts. And I always say, great idea, but how do I do that? Because if I could do that, I would have done it already. You know, it's like turning on the lights and turning off the lights. Positive thoughts are not that easy. And if I have what somebody could define as irrational or negative thoughts, I would have to question why. What function do they have? They might bring me suffering. They might muddle me up. They might take me off of my path, but they do have a function. They are there for a reason. And I would have to question why they are there instead of just saying, no, 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 I can do this, rah, rah, rah. I can go today and I can speak and everybody's going to be interested and nobody will fall asleep on me and nobody will say, oh, that was really boring, rah, rah, rah. But that doesn't work. That's not how the human psyche works. That's not how we work. If I have a negative thought like, oh, are they going to be interested in what I'm talking about? Are they going to think it's all rubbish? And they're going to say, ugh, just another speaker coming to sell a new idea, you know, or I didn't learn anything new there. That was pretty boring. If I think that, there's a reason for that being there. And what I would have to do is question that reason. No, instead of Elizabeth coming to speak today because it brings her joy, because it makes her content, because she can connect, because she can learn things from other people and she can try and help others learn from her. Instead of thinking of all of those things, that negative thought is connecting with something else. Okay, so positive is a very tricky word that we are sold very often as the formula to finding happiness. And we don't find happiness just by positive thoughts. We can find happiness by exploring negative, sad, uncomfortable emotions and thoughts. That's where I grow. I don't grow from positivity. That will bring me things that are more positive. Like, for example, being able to say no to somebody. No? Being able to say, you know what, I got a phone call last week from the Colegio Psicólogos. I have, for many years, I've trained psychologists in suicide prevention. And so they called me up and they're like, hey, Elizabeth, why don't you come back and do what I did? And part of me was like, oh, they still want me. That's good. I hadn't heard anything from them for such a long time. I thought something had happened and I was, you know, they thought I wasn't good anymore. I'm wanted. And the other part of me was like, oh. Because that means 5 or 6 weeks in the evening, because I'm in my office all day long. That means from probably like from 6 o'clock in the evening till 9 o'clock in the evening for 5 Mondays or 6 Tuesdays, I'm going to have to connect after attending a whole day of patients. And part of me was like, and so my first instinct was, no, 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 you got to do this. This is good. This is positive. You know, this is part of being a professional. You got to get your name out of there. And then I thought, stop. Stop for one moment. You don't have to answer today. You can answer tomorrow. Think about it. What is the negative thought telling me? I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to come home and work till 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. I already did that for a long time. I want to come home and read my book. I want to come home and make something to eat quietly. And if I do one taller or I don't do one taller, it's not going to make any difference. And so the next day, with a trembling hand, I sent the message and I said, thank you very much for the opportunity, but I'm going to pass on this one. And I sent the message. And I took a deep breath, no, because yeah, that might mean they never contact me again. And so there will be a loss. But with that loss, what will I gain? That I can do something that makes me feel content, that I enjoy, that at this stage of the game, I don't necessarily have to take every single thing that's thrown at me. I don't have to prove anything to anybody. I have to do it for me. Okay, so that was wonderful. Great. I like that you picked up that word. You wanted to say something.
Something I read as a teen, I think it was from knowledge about in order to feel happiness, you must feel sadness.
Yeah.
So just the difference between the highs and lows, in order to truly experience happiness, you must also be in the lows sometimes.
Because in order to find happiness, once again, I have to grieve. I have to let something go. Because if I'm not feeling content, There's something that I'm doing in my life that I've always done or that I started to do that I thought would make me feel really good, but it turns out it didn't make me feel as good as I thought it would. Or maybe I did it not because it was going to make me feel good, but I thought because I had to do it, I should do it. It was my obligation to do it. No, all of those things that we think we are obligated to do. And you would be really surprised how many things we have in our brains that are actually, we think we are expected to do it when we really don't have to. But that might mean that the people around us might say, oh, but why aren't you doing that? That's not good. You know, you should, if you want to be successful, you have to do that workshop. If not, you're going to be old. Nobody's going to see you anymore. All the young guns are coming up. They're going to take all the spotlight and nobody's going to remember Elizabeth Seaward worked suicide prevention for 20 years in Costa Rica and helped the government create all of its programs. Yeah, that will be a loss. That will be a loss. And it won't be my name, the first one that comes up. When somebody says, who should we call for a talk on suicide? No, it won't be my name. It'll be somebody else's name. So yes, part of happiness is sadness because I have to let something go in order to find that new place where I would like to be. Yes.
Okay, so there you go. Take that sentence. A sense that one's life is meaningful and valued, that goes first.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Because if you have that sense,
Yes.
then all the rest
Uh-huh.
automatically comes along.
Uh-huh. It will find its place.
If you're not the first in the line, maybe your life is not. Maybe you won't feel that your life is valuable, meaningful and valued.
Mhm.
So you have to look for the value and the meaningfulness
Uh-huh.
of what you do with your time.
Mhm. But before I do that, yes, but before I do that, I would have to ask myself, why, if I'm not the first in line, why does that define meaningful and value for me? Where does that come from? Why is it like that? And that's why I think it's so important when we talk about happiness that we can go a little bit deeper. Maybe I think that because in my house, it was very much valued the intellectual part. In my house, nobody ever said, oh, Elizabeth, you're so pretty, or oh, Elizabeth, you're my princess, oh, you're the apple of my eye. Nobody ever said that in my house. But what did people say in my house? You know, what do you think about politics? You know, if you're going to sit with mom and dad and they're having, you know, my dad was a general manager in a mining camp and all of the heads of departments are coming and you have to sit at the table with us, how are you going to have an intelligent conversation with all of these people? Or if the politicians come in and you have to sit there as well, what are you going to say that's intelligent? Why? Because in my house, that's what was valued. And it's not that I'm getting rid of that value. But maybe today I can value that I don't have to be the smartest. I don't have to be the first. I don't have to be the one that knows everything. I can actually sit and read a book. And it doesn't have to be a big fancy history book. It can be a novel about love, you know, and that's okay. That's all right. So I agree with you. But the step before that is questioning why I thought that's where meaning and value were. And if you can do that, then you can start breaking away from those things that are in our head unconsciously without us knowing, saying, shh, you shouldn't say no. You have to say yes, even though you don't want to do it. No?
So just to
I'll be with you in a second.
answer that real quick. That's a very easy one. It's the society.
Uh-huh.
We all come from a different society.
Mhm.
You know, maybe we're all from the States, we're all from the States.
Mhm.
But within that, there are spheres.
Yep. There are solar systems. I call them solar systems. We all are part of a solar system, right? There's a big solar system, that's society. There are mini solar systems that are my community. There are lots of little solar systems that would be my school, my workplace, my family. My family is a really important solar system because when I'm born into that solar system, I am born with a reason to be there. My parents have me for a reason, to be the smart one, to be the helpful one, to be the funny one, to be the rebel, to be the one that takes over the family business, to be the one that gets married and gives the grandkids. We all have to come in to a solar system. And that's not bad, that's okay. It's not that our parents totally messed us up or they were terrible parents because of that. Everybody has to come in a place, because if you don't come into a place in different skills, if I'm just a plant or a rock or a thing, then I can't become a human being. There's no psyche there. No, I'm just a body without anything inside that body. And so in that solar system, I have a place. And very often I don't question that place until I'm married, until I've gone away, until I've been in my job, kind of our age. More young people are coming to therapy now, and that's wonderful. But I think you are able to really question those places a lot more when you're a little bit older, because you feel like you've done the things that you should have done. And now I can question it. And maybe I don't want to be the intellect or the helpful one or the rebel. Maybe I want to be something else. But that means then that I have to go against the place that my parents gave me, or my family gave me, or the school gave me, or my group of friends gave me. So yes, we are a part of many solar systems. You have to question those solar systems in order to question yourself. You can't do it the other way around. People think you do it the other way around. You don't. You and I, Katia and I were talking before, about how important it is to be able to question why I'm angry with the people around me and be angry with the people around me, to then question, why do I always do the things that I don't want to do? Trying to make them happy and not making myself happy. And how can I do it without beating up on the other person? Because that's not easy. Often what we use in adolescence, we separate from our parents being rebels. No, I'm not going to wear that dress. I don't like dresses. No, I'm not going to come home at 10 o'clock. That's really important. Any child that's not a rebel, you're like, something's up here. Everybody has to be a little bit of a James Dean, right? And push the limits a little bit. Because by pushing the limits, I separate myself psychologically, emotionally from my parents. And then I can create my own world and what I want. But we have to be careful with that, because in adolescence, we're allowed to be a little bit rambunctious and a little bit of a pain in the backside. It's okay. But when we're adults, we can't go around using that tool, pushing people away, getting angry with people. So we have to figure out how we can separate without using that tool. And that's a bit difficult. I'll go with you and then with you. Yes.
Yeah, I think what you're bringing here for happiness, for me, it's the notion of enoughness.
Enoughness?
Yeah,
how
enough, that things are good enough, that I don't need to have something extraordinary. That I don't need something extraordinary to be happy.
Exactly.
That a simple thing can bring me happiness. Mm-hmm. And that's the notion of enough, like this is enough. It doesn't have to be more. Mm-hmm. And I think we live in a society where more is really valued.
Yes.
And enough is not put,
yes.
Nothing is enough.
Because those little things don't tend to be things that are visible to everybody else. Mm-hmm. They're only visible to myself. Yeah. And we live in a very imaginary world right now. The internet was an incredible invention, but we had no clue the disasters that it was going to create in relationships and how we interact with each other, and therefore how we interact with ourselves. Even our generations. Now, I was speaking to the person that Romy, right? See, Romy, she was my partner who I had to speak with earlier and get to know. And she was saying this whole thing with the internet and exposing yourself on the internet and trying to sell yourself on the internet and use it as a tool. Well, my generation, most of our generation, we had a cell phone when we were in our 30s. We didn't have this internet. And so this whole idea of the imaginary, of the screen, of what I can see, but that's flat. We forget that it's flat, and we forget about it because it's part of our psyche. We all need a little bit of the imaginary to sugarcoat reality. The thing is the imaginary has been taken to an extreme, and now we just don't know what to do with it anymore. So yes, often enough in the sense of not that it makes me complete, because completion does not exist. Nobody is complete, nobody is perfect, nobody has everything. If we're alive, we have things that we lose and we have things that we gain. They go hand in hand constantly. And so enough often is, yes, very small things within me that are not tangible to other people. And so it's like, well, what do you mean you don't want to make a lot of money? Well, no, that's not my aspiration. I would rather be able to wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, have my yucky green shake, and read my book and then go to the office. So yes.
And another notion is embodiment.
Okay.
Like not to think not to define habit, but how do I feel inside? How does my body feel?
Yes.
In the enoughness and in the embodiment of what
Yes.
makes me happy.
Yes.
So these are two notions I would add to this definition.
And that's very important. What do I feel? And we spend a lot of time running away from our feelings. There are a lot of tools out there to connect. Now, one thing is to say, I'm angry. Another thing is to invite anger or anxiety or sadness or feeling like I don't have any answers, to sit down with me and have a cup of tea, and that we can talk about it. We don't often do that. Mindfulness, I connect, it's here, I accept it, I agree with all of that, but you can't just say it's here and I accept it. And it's a state and it will come and go. These emotions are there for a reason, especially anxiety. Anxiety gets such a bad rap these days, and it's so unfair. Anxiety is important. Anxiety tells me that something has shifted in my world that I don't understand why it shifted. It's different from fear. Fear is, I'm walking in the jungle, I feel the dinosaur breathing down my neck, I turn around, there's the dinosaur. Fight, or flight. I run to my cave and I protect myself. Anxiety is, I'm walking in the jungle, I feel the breath of the dinosaur, I look behind me, there's nothing there. So I think, it's all in my head. This is just me being silly. And I continue on, and I continue on. Until finally it turns into a panic attack. And that's my brain telling me, the emotional part of my brain telling me, stop, listen to me. You're not listening. You're recognizing it, but you're not listening. You're not speaking to it. So it's very important, that I can connect with my emotions, but not just saying they're here, I accept them, they will pass, it's okay. They have a function. Every emotion that I feel has a function. It has a positive side because it helps me with something, even though it sounds totally crazy. How can anxiety help me? It does help me because it makes me say there's something up. And there's a negative side if I don't listen to it. You wanted to say something.
Wanted you to talk about happiness can be also one's life is meaningful and valued, especially when your solar system was one that you were the mistake. There was a mistake, and you spent your whole life being the mistake and wondering why you're even around. And somehow or another, finding happiness in the fact that you feel, even if you're not, but that you feel that what you're doing has meaning for others, yourself and others. I think that's a very deep happiness.
And I would add on to that with your example, if I was the mistake, and so my parents didn't really want me, because, I'm not what they expected me to be, or they weren't expecting to have a child at that time, or my mother told me that she wanted to abort me, because unfortunately some mothers, communicate those things. to their children, to understand that that doesn't have anything to do with me. It has to do with them. But when we are children, our worlds depend on our parents. That's why we're egocentric. No, it's me, me, me. If mommy's sad, it's because I did something wrong. If daddy's angry, it's because I did something wrong. If daddy left mommy or mommy left daddy, it's because I did something wrong. That happens when we're children. Until we separate psychologically, emotionally from our caregivers. But many times, even though we separate emotionally, that stays there. And so part of the work is understanding, well, maybe my mom or my dad suggested not having me, not because they didn't want me, but maybe because they were scared. Or maybe they thought they were going to do it wrong. Or maybe they thought, you know, that there was going to be something there that they couldn't do for me. So you have to try and get a little bit into the world of the other person to try and understand what was going on. That's really difficult to do it because we don't always have all the information. And that doesn't mean that we have to go to our parents and say, explain to me what you were thinking when you decided that you didn't want to have me. The work isn't done with the other person. The work is done with yourself. It's your own fantasies about what happened. Because sometimes people tell me, but my parents are no longer around, or my grandparents are no longer around, or my siblings are no longer around. That means I can't do that work. That is not true. You can do that work because you create also your own interpretation of what was going on. No, maybe my mother had a mental illness and nobody knew that. And she was hallucinating and nobody knew she was hallucinating. Or maybe my father was an addict and nobody knew it because he was a functioning addict and nobody knew that. He just liked to have his beer, you know, and watch the game. But there were other things that were going on. So I would add to that yes, part of me understanding what my value is trying also to understand why that other person thought that was the only solution.
Okay, once we're there with understanding why our parents are the way we are, what I'm curious about is how your opinion on how valuable it is to create a life that's meaningful, that you feel is meaningful and has value for others towards happiness. Because once we've gone through, I do a lot of shadow work, a lot, you know, because when you deal with traumas and they're very early and they've been going on through most of your life because you create those, you have to look at them. Everything you're saying is incredibly valid. Right? But my question is, and it does pertain to me, is how valuable is happiness when you've created a meaningful life that you feel is meaningful and actually is meaningful to other people. Whatever is meaningful to you becomes a help to other people. How?
Well, of course, because when we say I can't help others and I can't love others if I don't love myself. Obviously, let's see, we are social creatures. We need others. We need connection. Even the monk on the top of the mountain is connecting with something. The gods, the mountain, the river, he or she is not doing it by themselves. So of course, part of happiness is being able to be part of a community and to be with others. I think the mistake is that I find happiness if I go to the local refugee, animal refuge, and I donate my time there. You can't go there without doing the previous work that I'm talking about. In order to truly connect and to love, and that the joy can come out and the passion can come out with what I'm doing, first of all, I have to understand why that's a passion for me. And is it my passion or is it somebody else's passion? And do I want to do it going every week or do I just want to go once a month? No, then I can make it mine. Happiness is personal. It's very personal. So I completely agree with what you say, but I think that a mistake at least from the work that I've done in my office with people, I have more than 20 years of listening to the suffering of people. And those are the people who have taught me, no, more than the books. Those are the people who have taught me. You can't find a passion. You can't connect with others. You cannot give to others if you're still hurting inside and you still don't know what's going on inside. And at the end of the day, we all have something that hurts. No, because sometimes people will tell me, well, but you know, my family life was not that bad. You know, I wasn't beaten. I had food on the table. My parents cared for me. That means I don't have any wounds. We all have wounds. And it's not harping on our wounds. It's recognizing our wounds and doing what we need to do with them. So the wounds aren't determining what I decide is my happiness. My happiness is determined by what I want to do now and what it makes me feel and what it gives to me. So that's what I would add to, I don't know if I answered your question, no, to what you're saying. I think there was something, did you want to say something? No, I got the impression.
I was going to say something a little while ago, what helps with this. So I'm just talking about blocks and like, I read something the other day about camp.
Right.
Like that's what people are.
Right.
And like I was just thinking here as.
I think they want you to use a microphone.
And I was just thinking here as professional women, as we all are, like, I think it's easy to get discouraged if you start a business and then it fails and you're like, I'm a failure. I have terrible ideas. And I was just thinking about what I'm doing here. And like, I went through a lot of things before I'm doing what I'm doing now. And I'm happy and I like what I do. And fortunately I've been, you know, it's been successful. It's not close enough. Sorry. Okay. So I was just thinking like back on all of these things I was trying to do for many years and I wasn't happy. It wasn't successful and it makes you feel like a failure when really it led me to where I am now.
Exactly.
And I could never have been where I am now if it hadn't been for those failures. And it's just like, I guess a lot of the negative, you know, if you play sports, something really simple, like I play tennis, I learn more when I lose a match than when I win a match. You know, it's never, you know, when you win, when you're successful, you're like, oh, I'm doing it all right. Well, that's not true either. So that was what I was thinking about.
Yeah, and that's really important. Thank you. That's super important because I think we need to get rid of the word failure. It's not that we fail. It's that maybe it wasn't the right moment, or maybe we didn't really have our heart into it, or maybe we really didn't understand what we were doing. No, we got to get rid of this idea of success and failure, which are all of these social things that are around, and it sounds so easy to get rid of them. Sounds so easy, but it's not. And I think it's something that we have to think about every single day. It's okay to make mistakes. Think about it as parents. I don't know how many of you are parents or grandparents here, but there's a lot of push, you know, that parents have to have all the answers and they have to guide their children, and you read 500 books and you go to all the seminars. And at the end of the day, one of the best tools with our kids is saying, I don't know. I have no idea what to do, but I tell you what, together, let's figure it out. Or, you know what? I just lost it. And that mistake is on me. And it's my issue and it's my problem. I work with a lot of people with depression. So sometimes the mothers or the fathers will say, well, what do I do if I want to cry? You know, because I say, if you need to cry, you cry. If you can't get out of bed, you can't get out of bed. For some reason, you can't get out of bed today. Don't push yourself. Let's go slowly. A little bit different from the way psychiatry tends to do it, which is constantly pushing the person to get out. Person has to get out slowly. You can't push them. And so I'll say, well, if you have to cry, then you tell your child, mommy or daddy is going to go and cry. It's got nothing to do with you. I'm sad because I have things that make me sad. So mommy or daddy are going to go and cry for a little bit, and then we'll go out for ice cream. And that actually drops the anxiety in kids a whole lot. Because often what we do, because we're egocentric, we say, mommy's crying because I didn't eat all of my supper, you know, or daddy's angry because I did something wrong. And it's got nothing to do with that. So we don't have to have all of the answers or do it right all of the time. It's in loss, it's in failure, it's when I don't know what I'm doing, but I can sit and think about it, that all of a sudden, other things can start coming up and I can say, oh, you know, maybe I thought that was gonna make me happy, but maybe not. Maybe I should try something else. You wanted to say something? You need the microphone. It's right there.
I have 2 points
Yes.
to return to when you said you don't need to go ask your parents what, you know,
Yes.
what. I found it in my life extremely helpful to search for clues that took away doubts, that took away anxiety, that took away low self-esteem. It was very awakening to me when my father said to me, we were so happy when we learned we were having you, because my mother was a single, they were college kids, and I thought my whole life that they jalar the torta, right?
Right.
As we say in Spanish.
Right?
And then it wasn't until like a year ago when
Yep.
my dad said, we were so happy.
Thank you.
Maybe he's remembering it in a different way, but
Right.
anyways, that was really good, the clue, and that changed my
Of
image of
course.
myself and my relationship with him. And the second thing that I wanted to comment about was, it took me a long time to understand this. In the 1980s, I was working with refugees, Salvadorian refugees, recently arrived here. They were telling me their traumas. The traumas were unknown to me. It was the CIA that was doing it. That was unknown. I mean, so much stuff. And I would go home in the car crying and sobbing, pulling off the side of the road, screaming. And the words that came to me was, there's more to life than happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why focusing on meaningful
Mm-hmm.
gets you over the trauma
Mm-hmm.
and the hard times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's how it's been for me anyway.
Mhm. And understanding that maybe there's a reason why I'm crying. And maybe it's because there was something that was traumatic for me in my life. No, that also, that this idea that you thought that your parents maybe didn't want to have you. Now, maybe they were sad. Maybe they were frightened. Maybe they were terrified. But that doesn't mean that they didn't want to have you. Nothing is black and white. But remember, the mind always takes us to black and white. The mind always takes us to extremes. Why? Because there's this idea internally in the extreme, fight or flight, that I can resolve. And we have to put in gray. We have to find the gray. Nothing that goes on in the world is flat. It always has multiple sides. So I hear you. When one works with trauma and one has heard things that are really, really horrifying, a lot of times what helps is when you close the door or you get in your car and you're kind of feeling all shook up, you can say, okay, this is not about them. This is about me. What does it touch in me? What is there about me that has been opened up today? Me trying to help the other person. Because I can't help the other person if I'm doing it through my trauma. No? And then it becomes meaningful. Because then I know that I can't solve, that I can't make the pain go away. No, because you brought up, kind of an extreme, working with refugees. I worked a long time with refugees as well. And I still do every once in a while, but I worked mainly with the Colombians that had come into the country. And sometimes you feel so helpless, and you start making mistakes and you start doing things that don't help the other person. Why do I do that? Because there's something in me that's been touched upon that doesn't permit me to understand that maybe that person just wants to be listened to. Or maybe the fact that I recognize that what they lived was real. It wasn't made up in their mind. Or that maybe that's something I can never forgive, because there's a lot of forgiveness thrown around. Sometimes people can't forgive. And forgiveness is not the answer to moving on. Maybe it's something else that they need to do to move on. So once again, I think it's super important what you're saying, but I invite all of you to take that step back and to understand that in order to have meaning, I have to understand whatever it is that's going on in my life, how does it relate back to me? Because it always does. At the end of the day, we are all egocentrical. We're all selfish. We have to be a little bit selfish. Being autonomous is being selfish. No, but being autonomous means that I can empathize with the other person, that I can understand that might hurt the other person, that I can understand the other person might not understand me, and that's okay. So really important what you're saying. You wanted to say something.
Well, yes, in terms of a spiritual practice, there's a man by the name of Michael Singer. He's written a number of books. His most recent one is The Untethered Soul. And one of the things that I'm practicing in terms of dealing with the shadow, dealing with triggers, number one, when something happens, somebody, drives in front of you or cuts you off or whatever, is to say, first of all, it's not about you, Michelle.
Exactly.
It's not about you. Secondly, if I'm triggered, it means there's something in my past that needs to be dealt with. Now, his whole philosophy, which I love, is actually leaning back and breathing in to that trauma, whatever that is, or that trigger, whatever it is, being grateful for it, because it's bringing up something that's asking to be healed. And that we don't always need to know what that is, except to breathe into it and to choose to release it. And to do it as it comes up so that it doesn't get in the way of our being able to connect with another human being, be present for another human being. And I found, since I've been engaging in this, it's making an incredible difference. Number one, it's not about me, whatever happens. Number two, if I'm triggered, it is something in my past, and I have an opportunity to breathe through it and to release it. It's so simple and yet so powerful at the same time.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think that's important. Those are things are important. But I think from my experience, working with trauma, working with people who have tried to commit suicide, with family members, I work a lot schizophrenia, with schizophrenics, with paranoia, with family members. I mean, most of my practice is working with trauma. That can be done when the person has already been able to do something with that trauma. For somebody who hasn't been able to, because they're too alone, it's too scary, it's still being repressed, that can be a little bit difficult. So what I say is, it's okay if that doesn't work for you. That doesn't mean that you're not doing it properly. It's a great tool, but it might mean that you need some other tools to go along with it. And maybe you need to be accompanied by somebody for a little bit. So then you can use that. Because it's not that I understand my trauma and then I don't have to breathe through it. Of course. Okay.
For example, the other day, something happened and I was noticing I was triggered.
Right.
All right. So I sat with it, breathed into it, and an image did come up of something that happened.
Right.
An incident.
Right.
An experience. So it did surface itself.
Yeah.
And I saw the opportunity to breathe into that. And so that is not saying it's not there, or not saying we're not acknowledging what the trauma is, because I do deal with people with trauma and their stories, because I hear stories. That's my profession. And when we listen to someone and hear that, to me, this opportunity to be able to actually let the image come up and be with that, not fight it, not resist it, not embrace it, but also to have a technique to begin to release it. Not to say it's not going to happen again and again until, but it's a combination of things. It's honoring that trigger, honoring that event, acknowledging that event, and then breathing into it.
No,
So
and I think
wasn't
it's fantastic. I just wanted to, underline, because I hear it a lot in my office. It's because somebody said, or I read in a book, or I saw, and that doesn't work for me. That means there's something wrong. No. It means that you need to do it a little bit differently. So I'm just adding to what you're saying, that not everybody can do it that way, and it's okay. Some people can't do it alone. They need to do it first with somebody else. No, because I think spirituality gives people that tool and that accompaniment, but sometimes it can be a little bit lonely for some people. And so it's just important that we understand that it's all right if that doesn't work for you, and that maybe you need to work through it with somebody else, and then you can have that there, because I know there are lots of techniques. That's one of them. There are tons of techniques now. Yeah, exactly. Maybe I'm saying it because most of the people who turn up at my office are people who have used other techniques and it hasn't worked. You know, and they've been dragging it around for a while, and then they turn up on the doorstep because, you know, different professionals and psychiatrists know me locally that I work those kind of things. So when they have people who are not progressing with other techniques, they tend to send them to me. So maybe that's why I see it from this other angle. But it's important, and everybody has to figure out what permits them to work through that. No, but I cannot define my happiness if I haven't worked through it. And we can all say, well, I did that work already. I think we do it our entire lives. I disagree that one has done it already. You might have done a bulk of the work. You might have been in therapy for a while or had for a while, but it's okay to go back, because I hear that a lot in my office as well. Oh, Elizabeth, you know, I haven't been to your office in 2 years, but can I come back? Of course you can come back. No, things happen in life. Of course you can come back. You can come back whenever you want. The door is always open. And I think that's part also of defining my happiness. The possibility to say that what made me happy before doesn't make me happy now. What makes me sad now is different from what made me sad before. It's in movement. There's nothing linear, ever. It's always in movement. If we're linear, we're not here. We're somewhere else. No? It's also a spiral, but the spiral is because we all have a basic theme and our basic wound. And what we do is we go around that wound and we try to progress on that wound going forward. It's not one step. No, it's going around it and around it and around it. But that round and round should progress. Different from, I have good moments, I have bad moments. I'm really happy, I'm really sad. No? Like the waves of the ocean. We have those two dimensions that are always there when we talk about how we're feeling internally.
I've had a thought that now the conversation has evolved in another direction a little bit. I was thinking about, before Michelle had her comment, thank you, that some of the parts of my personal evolution with, I feel like, just sort of being more comfortable in my own self and accepting myself and things. I think one of the things that helped was to accept that, acknowledge and accept all of the different possible emotions that could be happening simultaneously. Mm-hmm. I could have, you know, I could have moments of, if I allow that all of these different emotions could be happening at the same time, then joy and happiness can be in there. Because I think that I can and have like been so laser point sort of focused that sometimes like if I have anxiety, I don't let anything else, or if I have depression, I don't let anything else, or if I'm just so focused on getting my list done at production, then you don't even let any of your emotions in. You're not even, you're like, oh, joy, psh, done, check, got that off the list, you know, and you just don't even, you're not really working on anything in here, you're just getting your stuff done. So I think that one of the things that had been really helpful for me is to not, when you have moments of depression, right, you can also be grateful in the same moment. You can have parallel emotions, and I think that that helps to kind of, that first step when you don't feel like you want to get out of bed is allow more than one thing to be able to be inside. Of course, it's a lot of work to get to that place, but and that's why when we were talking about all of the words in here, right, I feel like it's like a cluster of words that evolve all throughout the day. Yes. That was just 45 minutes extra in traffic. Yes. And I had a lot of emotions about that and some triggers and some,
Yeah.
you know, anxiety and all of that. But I also was like, I really want to get here to listen to what you're talking about. So I also was immediately felt relieved and joy. So being able to allow
Yes,
multiple things to happen.
Yes.
Feels like you're allowing the door to be open for any of them to come in.
exactly. And that's the scary part.
Yeah.
Because if I'm opening the door to let any emotion come in, I can feel emotions that are not very nice. And what do I do with those emotions? How do I deal with them when they come out?
When the bad ones come in, if you accept that the bad ones aren't always the only.
No, and that they have a function.
Yeah.
They have a reason for being. And it's not, they have a reason for being, so I'm just going to let it be there. No. Why is it there? Why am I so angry? I said things that I never should have said. Why? What was happening? Did I feel vulnerable? Was there a trigger there that I felt vulnerable? Did I feel like I was being attacked? Did I feel like I wasn't being listened to? There's a function. We have to be, you know, bad emotions have a bad rap, and they shouldn't. They're telling us something about ourselves, which probably connects to something else. No? I think one of the words that really jumped out at me was enduring. It's not enduring. Happiness is not enduring. It comes in and it comes out. You can't pack it in a little bottle and put it on in the morning like you do your perfume. Okay? And that's okay. That's all right. It comes and it goes like the waves. And that doesn't mean that I'm not content. It means that our things are moving. And if things are moving, I have to understand why they're moving and what I want to do with that movement. We tend often in life to look at, you know, the goals. No, I learned to walk. Then I learned to run in the playground. Then I get to be an adolescent. Then I get to enjoy my sexuality. Then maybe I'll have kids or I'll have a dog. Maybe then I'll retire. Maybe then, and I bump. No, why do I do that? It's like kids when they watch a Disney movie. I mean, how many times can you watch The Lion King? Really? It's like 200 times, right? It's the same thing. It's because it gives us a false sense of security. And we need those goals. I'm not saying throw those goals away. We need goals. But goals are there not because they need to be done. It's because it makes us feel like we're going somewhere. And sometimes we just need to sit in the mud and say, okay, I'm sitting in the mud. What am I doing here? Why am I here? There must be a reason. What is it? And we don't constantly have to be pushing to find the key to happiness, because there's no key. Let me give you that and then to you. Yes.
Sorry, Katya.
Go ahead. You've been waiting patiently.
I'm dealing with, well, actually, my son feels stuck in the mud, and also there's suicide problems here in Costa Rica. But I wanted to ask your opinion about something that I had read.
Okay.
I read a book, a little book. Actually, Gail had recommended it to me, and my son also had it, a
Okay.
copy. And it was written by a man who'd been through the Holocaust. He had been in 4 different
Victor
camps.
Frankl. The meaning, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
beautiful book.
And
Yeah.
what I got from it was that phrase, one's life is meaningful, because he gave example after example. And his point was that the meaningfulness had to be something outside of yourself.
Mhm.
It would be, he had a scientific paper, I think he was the one who had a scientific paper that had been confiscated and destroyed.
Mhm.
And so his meaning for the world was to complete his paper and publish it. And so he made it through the death camps with that in his mind.
Mhm.
Also, he said a person might have a new wife and an unborn child.
Mhm.
And so their thoughts throughout the horrible experiences they were going through had to do with getting back to be with that person. What are your thoughts on the nuance that you can, to focus on yourself is not always the answer, you have to go outside of yourself for something that is valuable outside yourself.
Well, that's exactly what Katya was speaking about. And the idea is it's both. It's not one or the other. Don't go, it's always both. Viktor Frankl wanted to write his paper for the world, but he wanted to write the paper for himself as well. It was important for him as well. So we have to have both. You can't have, when you go to one or the other, you're just trying to balance. You're just trying to take the balance and balance it out. You got to find the gray. It's a little bit of all of those things. I can't give to others if I don't know what giving to myself is. No, and I can't give to myself if I don't know what giving to others is. So it's both. It's an internal, external journey every single day. I think for many people, that's just my experience, but doesn't mean that it's correct, no, is that many times it's easier to give to others than to give to yourself and then accompany others. Because the idea of giving to others is often misconstrued with, I resolve the other's pain. I help the other understand their pain. I make their pain go away. That's a little bit what coaching does. That's why I have a little bit of a with coaching. It's rah, rah, rah. No, I'm going to give you the tools to do this. No, I can give you, well, a lot of coaching in this country has been that way. I don't know. Even the Tom or Tim Robbins, even I think I disagree with that totally. I think it's very dangerous, because at the end of the day, then why am I really giving to others? Am I giving to others to resolve something that's mine? Or am I giving? I can tell you this because as a therapist, you have to have resolved your issues. You cannot be a therapist if you have not done your own analytical work. And I say therapist, a social worker, a psychiatrist, a coach, you have to have done. And it's not that I went to 6 sessions. No. You have to do a proper analysis to understand who you are. And only then can you separate out to listening and accompanying and helping somebody work through their pain and separate it from yours. So I think it's actually a little bit easier to help other people than it is to question oneself. And what is helping me? It's making changes. It's recognizing there are things that I can't do. It's accepting that there are people that I hurt, that there were things that I did that probably were not the best idea. I shouldn't have done them. And that sounds really easy, but it's not easy. That's really hard to do. And if I don't do that first, I believe, then I can't do the other. But one cannot be without the other. We connect. We are social creatures, no? We need others.
Okay, here's my vision of it. It's a train track, parallel tracks. Me helping me accompanying the others, them helping me, I helping them. It's an accompaniment than a train track. If a train track, one wheel is over here and one wheel is back here, you don't move forward. And that's the best way. And then you stop at the stop together and you look at what's going on together and then you continue. Train track, parallel. You're riding the same trip. Yeah, you're riding the-
but
it's
in
not
order
anymore the train
But in
track,
order
not
to
the
do
train.
that, I agree. In order to do that, I have to be in a place where I'm not vulnerable. Because in order to accompany somebody else, in order to connect, in order for me to come here today, I had to be vulnerable. Because I know you, well, on the phone, and we've been chit-chatting, but I don't know any of you. And I'm coming and I'm exposing myself, And so in order to be able to connect with somebody else, I have to be in a place where I can be vulnerable. And I'm not always ready to be vulnerable. And that is also okay. But the thing to ask is, Why can't I be vulnerable right now? Why am I so frightened of being exposed? One of the biggest obstacles to happiness is fear. No, and I think at the end of the day, we all want to be loved, and we all want to be recognized, and we all want to be important for somebody or something. No, but that's hard to do that, because it means that the other person or the other thing or the other creature or whatever it is can hurt me, and they can leave me and can give me not what I want, but what they want to give me. And that's always very difficult. It is, and it's every day. It's an everyday job. So we've only got like 10 minutes, right? Okay, I just want to bring up, because we basically done it without, si usted puede pasarlo rápidamente. Well, we've spoken about this all day. We've been differentiating between happiness, pleasure, and meaning. No, I think we've been able to do that, right? Happiness is not the same as pleasure, and it's not the same as meaning. Pleasure is a Pups ice cream on a really hot day, right? But I can't just live off of Pups ice creams on hot days. It's in a moment. It's what all of you have been saying. How can I find meaning? And we see with the suicide rates that are going on right now, that is not so easy to do, to have meaning, to know why I'm here, to know what I'm doing here. It's not an easy thing to answer. Si puede, continúa. Okay, I can't ever go away from somewhere without emphasizing mental health. And let's see, we still have a lot of stigmas around mental health. We still have a really difficult time saying when we're not doing well. And we have a difficult time differentiating between being truly, profoundly sad and depressed, or having anxiousness, a little bit of anxiety, and being consumed and paralyzed by anxiety. Okay, it's different. And I think we're being sold a little bit that depression is being profoundly sad, or a little bit of anxiety is terrible. That's why everybody's popping pills, so I don't feel. Okay, there's a difference. Any one of us at any time in our lives can suffer from mental illness, depression, anxiety. Okay, it's a period of time. It's a time when the recommendation is to get psychological help. The medicine comes in to lower the symptoms. It's important. I work with psychiatrists. I believe in the medicine, but the medicine does not resolve it. The medicine comes in and lowers the symptoms so I can get out of bed, so I can have a shower, so I can get to work, so I'm not crying in the bathroom all day. No, so I can make the arroz con pollo for the kids, what all the things I need to do. But it does not get resolved with medication. I have to go to therapy. If I am having depression or anxiety, it's because I have been dragging something along for a long time. And I've tried to resolve it, and I've tried to ask for help, but for some reason, I have not been able to communicate it in such a way that others truly understand what I'm asking for, or the people around me haven't understood it. This is different from a mental disorder. There are some people in the world that the way they are psychologically, their structure, their personality structure is, they have less tools in their toolbox than other people. It's not that they don't have tools. They don't have a variety of tools, okay? So when they try to resolve something, they go for their hammer, and if they have to hang up a picture on the wall, it works perfectly. But if they have to tell their spouse they didn't like it, that they left the toilet seat up and they bunked them over the head with a hammer, it's catastrophic, okay? So somebody with a mental disorder can do all sorts of things in the world. I work with lots of people with schizophrenia, with paranoia, lots of people. They're super creative. They're amazing human beings. They connect, but they connect differently because the way that they read the world is more in the extremes. So people who live with what we call in the psychological, psychiatric world, I call it a different set of glasses. No, to see the world. If they have a different way of seeing the world, they will probably need to have psychotherapy, and medication for most of their lives. Different from mental illness, which is an episode. Okay, it can be a prolonged episode, but it's an episode. And so sometimes people with a mental disorder, if they don't get the help that they need, if they can't find the resources, yeah, they end up in the hospital for a period of time. No, and the idea is that they don't have to end up there if we can give them resources. But what is important is that we differentiate it, because neither one of these are crazy. Neither one of these is somebody who cannot give anything to the world. Neither one of these is somebody that has to be locked up forever. It's just they're different manifestations of the tools that I have and the way I read the world around me and I read myself. And depending on them, depends on the resources that I need to look for and how I have to have those resources in my life. This is different from psychological urgency, which for me is suicidal thoughts. Okay? When I have suicidal thoughts, any one of us, and the population that is growing alarmingly for the professionals are people over 65. It's amazing how many older people are having suicidal thoughts and they are not able to look for help because they're ashamed, they're embarrassed, they think if it's wrong, all of those stigmas that we grew up with. I think the younger generations are different now. They have a little bit more access, but we have to really work together to be a community. And what do I do if I think somebody is struggling? I go up to that person, I say, hey, what's up? I think you're, looks like you've been struggling. Is everything okay? Everything's just fine. You sure? Because it's okay if it isn't just fine. If you ever want to talk, if you ever want somebody to listen to you, you never offer to resolve the problems. You never tell them, what they should do, but you help that person, you accompany that person to find help. And I think it's really, really important that we can be aware of that. And it's not somebody different from me who can have suicidal thoughts. I think probably if we go around the room, every single one of us has either lost somebody to suicide, knows somebody who has struggled with suicidal thoughts, or we ourselves have struggled with both of those things. And we have to think about it. So part of this whole concept of happiness really is about my mental health. And me every single day saying, what do I feel? And it's okay to feel angry now, 10 minutes later sad, 20 minutes later happy, then mad again. It's like this. The thing is that I can question why I feel what I feel. And nobody can give me the answers. Somebody can accompany me. Somebody can help me see things in a different way because they've been trained to do that. But at the end of the day, I have to go inside and I have to look inside all those scary little places that I think have all these big monsters. But at the end of the day, when you get them out to the light, they're not quite as scary and they're not such big monsters. So that's what I brought for you today. I hope it opened up the discussion. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Elizabeth, thank you. Oh, shoot. Wow. Thank you, Elizabeth. I think you brought up so many things that are so touching for all of us and really important to think about and not only to have a talk, but to have a conversation. And thank you. Thank you so much. All right. So I'm going to try and do this fairly quickly because we do have our table of 16 back here, which is where we're going to eat. So when everybody who is going to stay, once we're done, we'll move here so we can let them clear this off and have other people come in and eat lunch in the bamboo room. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to announce that we need to make sure everybody has a door prize ticket so that we can do that in a moment. Double check for your door prize ticket. Do you have it? If you do not have it, tell Romy and Jackie and they will get you one. Raise your hand. Okay. Oh, okay, great. So in terms of announcements, I first want to give a big thank you to Kathy Rothschild and to our friend Harrison for setting up the audiovisual connection, and for Harrison for doing a great job. We're here live on Zoom and we have the recording now. So this is a new thing for us in person, and I'm very grateful to both of you. Muchas gracias. So that's something that Harrison's willing to do. He's charging a very nominal amount, and we appreciate him so much. Romy has a little box where we actually have audiovisual donations. So if anybody's willing to put some cash in here, we would love that. We have an anonymous donor for today's audiovisual money, and then we have Gail has pledged to donate as well for that. So I want to make sure that we have some matching donations for that. Thank you all in advance. Thank you to the leadership team. Couldn't do it without you. Thank you, Romy, for registering people, Jackie for doing the door prizes and helping register, Phyllis for your unending support, and Kyra for helping see people. Phyllis, yes. And for Gabriella, who has helped put together conversations with Elizabeth and making sure everything was ready to go. All right. In terms of Harrison, he is actually looking for work. So we want to use our networking skills and conversations. Thank you, Kathy. Okay, so Harrison is actually a técnico en sistemas, and he knows Cisco sin certificaciones. So if you know anybody who may be looking for somebody with his skills, then please get in touch with him, get in touch with Kathy, get in touch with me to get in touch with him. Either way, if you have somebody in mind right now, it'd be great to have a conversation with Harrison. All right, so Gail, I'm gonna ask you to be really quick because our food is ready.
I'm going to give you the results of the dinner that we all supported, you all supported so well. And I got to tell just one really quick story. The total amount of expenses was $7,816. That was to pay the Marriott, the transportation for all the people to get over there, and other expenses. The total donations was $17,175, of which Professional Women's Club gave $5,150. So we have $9,359 left over. So first of all, where's Jerry? Don't leave. I have a car full of books for you, and here's your money. So you can make the payment. So you can make the payment to Libros para Todos, because I didn't get to the bank. So here it is. Okay. And yes. You wanted me to be short. My name is Gail Nystrom. I run a foundation. I work in at-risk populations. I've done it for 40 years or more. And this was the first time we did our 25-year dinner celebration. And I have a letter that's going to go into the newsletter called, "Was it a success? How do we define success?" Okay, is that enough? Okay, if you have other questions, look for me. Okay, so we have $1,000 Libros para Todos. We have $2,000 to make indigenous libraries. I'm going down next week with $1,000 to help one. My book is My Friend Project. Food security, we've already given $1,000 so that it's 500,000. It's like, I don't know, a lot of families being fed. We did a men's retreat where some of you, if you look at my Facebook, they went on a fishing trip, men on a fishing trip. How macho is that? It was very beautiful. And then we have $759 to donate to the teen girls. And that'll be over a period of time. Scholarships, transportation to and from school, etc. So thank you so much, because you did almost half of the amount coming in of the expenses. The other ones were big donors who help me all the time. $4,000 Howard Cheller, $2,000 Gary Kaplan, $2,000 from another man. It was difficult because some donated to PayPal, some donated to Scotiabank, some donated to Banco Nacional, some donated to Vicky, but I think I got it. So this is what's going to go in the official thing. I think that's all. Okay, now wait. Oh, can I tell this story? I have to tell the story about Nella. Nella is now 39 years old. I picked her up when she was 13 off the street. She was a street girl. She had a really rough life. She came to the dinner as a star participant. We gave her at the end of the hallway a little alcove. She was there with her daughter, Kayla, who is 21, her son, Benji, who is 7, and Kayla's son, Theo, who is 3. Okay, so there you go. Benji, the little one, is a normal, lovely, delightful little boy. Kayla, Benji, and Theo. Benji is a normal, delightful 7-year-old. Kayla is a young woman working at a sports center, earning her own money, raising her child beautifully. One of you was talking to Nella. I don't know who it was, someone. She didn't know who it was. And as she was talking, she was telling her story, and the woman said to her, Nella, you're so incredibly brave. It's amazing what you've done. During the period that this person was talking to Nella, she got a message on her phone that Johnsy is dead. Who is Johnsy? The man who raped her when she was 13. Why did that happen at that dinner at that time with that? I got chills. I want to say God directed, but anyway, do you understand what happened? Do you get it? She gets this message that her abuser died. Her abuser died while she's at this dinner with all these people loving and supporting her. Now it's time to eat. Thank you very much for what you did.
Thank you, Gil. We're so happy that we were able to help. And okay, so I'm going to try and be very, very brief because yes, our food is ready to be rolled out. Okay, so for our next fundraiser will be for the Rahab Foundation, which helps women who are finding ways out of prostitution and being human trafficked. So that's our next very important fundraiser. It will be starting in June. For June, we have a speaker who will be talking to us about marketing. She is the marketing director for Automercado. So I think she'll have a lot of very interesting things to share with us, and we'll be starting to promote that event very soon. That is the 3rd Saturday of June. If anybody wants to pull that up and tell me. Okay, we are going to jump right into the door prizes because we don't have any time left. Jackie has several of the door prizes. Do we want to? I'll hand it to you and I'll go get them, right?
Yeah, they're right there. We've had a lot of people that every time we come on this Saturday, the 3rd Saturday of the month, we have a couple, and then people always seem to bring. So everyone's bring a couple door prizes as well. So everyone's been very generous. You can't hear me, sorry. I feel like I'm talking on top of it. Anna Maria Matamoros, who's sitting over here in a floral blouse. She donated some cards, some note cards that her personalized artwork, original artwork is on there. I don't know if you want to tell us a little bit about what you do. We can also give you orders if anyone likes to place an order.
Hi, I'm an artist and I put my illustrations in several products, and these are some cards, and they are beautiful to send with a gift, and you can also personalize them. There are 10 different birds of Costa Rica. I also have other styles, so you're welcome to contact me.
It is 502109. Okay, congratulations. Got some beautiful cards. Okay, The next door prize, well, Gail brought a pretty flower arrangement. I don't know if you wanted to say anything about it or you just wanted to donate it. Oh, okay. Here, you can pick the winner. Excuse me, sorry.
502-106.
502-106. Thank you, Gail. We also have a little credit card and identification case that is a protective case, so no one can steal your information. That was donated by Helen Griffin, sitting over there. Thank you, Helen. I'm gonna pick out the winner. $502-108. 502-108. That maybe it's mine. That's mine. Do I get to win it? Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, and then the last door prize was donated by Doc Harmony. It was actually sort of a fitting with our the presentation today. Doc Harmony, she provides happiness, harmony, how does she say? Health, happiness, and harmony products. So it's a beauty, they're all organic, vegan. And so she donated this little basket. She hasn't been with us. I think she'll come at the end of the year. She's a great woman. She's actually done some presentations too. So I don't know, Sarah, you want to pick out the winner?
Can't be me, right?
It could.
No. 502-110. Is that me?
Oh my. Well, Sarah Joy is the glue that keeps this group together and done a great job. So thank you. It's I'll give you back.
Thank you, everybody. I'm sorry for running over. I'm so glad that we were able to have the full conversation. Whoever's staying for lunch, please head over here and they'll pick up the tables and get us ready for lunch.